Welcome to Art Gallery Explorer from Paris, where I'm really looking forward to heading inside the Fondation Louis Vuitton, which you can see here, a Frank Gehry designed gallery space to explore a massive retrospective by Gerhard Richter. And I'm hoping that this will be part of several vlogs from Paris that I'm going to bring you over the sometimes gloomy month of November. This is quite spectacular, by the way. Let me just spin you round. Gerhard Richter was born in 1932 and grew up under the Third Reich. He found himself in communist East Germany after the war and studied mural painting in Dresden. He and his wife left East Germany just before the Berlin Wall put an iron curtain between East and West in the very early 1960s. Today, he's one of our most beloved and preeminent artists. Richter is obviously most well known as a painter, but his styles have ranged from photorealist painting to pretty wild abstract art. He's also produced sculptures and other work as well. This show is not the first great big Richter retrospective. I remember visiting one at Tate Modern in 2011, and maybe you were lucky enough to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art retrospective in 2020 before it was sadly shut because of COVID. But this one is going to be a monster because this gallery behind me, this is my first visit, has so much space, and I'm pretty sure it's going to pack it out with Richter's work. With that in mind, I'm not going to show everything, but I'll give you a taste. And what I'm really hoping with a retrospective which spans the whole of Richter's career from the 1960s till now, is that we get a sense of how he's changed and developed as an artist. Come and join me as we head inside. As we enter, I am going to put on some ambient music to accompany these works, but please mute it if it's not your taste, and either let the works speak for themselves or maybe choose something a bit more appropriate. Maybe some work by Steve Reich, for example, might accompany these works well.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that exploration there of an epic Gerhard Richter retrospective from the Fondation Louis Vuitton in Paris. And I'd like to say a big merci to the Fondation Louis Vuitton for allowing us to take photos and post on social media. I certainly wasn't the only one trying to capture the richness of this show when I went just a couple of days ago. I have to say, I think there are two certainties about Gerhard Richter shows. One, there'll be many more big retrospectives over the next decades. He produced so many works. I think it was 952 numbered paintings, for example, in so many different styles. And he's so popular that museums across the world will not be able to resist showing ranges of his works. But secondly, I don't think there'll ever be a more comprehensive showing of his works than this retrospective here at the Fondation Louis Vuitton. Firstly, I can't see a gallery space that's going to be able to give up so much space. I mean, I think there were dozens of rooms here full of his work. And secondly, I don't think they'll be able to show the full range in the way that the Fondation Louis Vuitton have. So with that in mind, I do think if you're a Richter fan and it's possible for you to get to Paris before the 2nd of March when this show shuts, then this is a must-see. I think it's not exaggerating to say that. I know it's difficult to get to Paris both for lots of us financially and also practically. So hopefully if you're not able to go and you're a massive fan, this vlog will have given you a chance to at least sense the magnificence of this exhibition. Now, I often think about these shows, big shows, in terms of the good, the bad and the beautiful. And clearly in this show, the good will massively outweigh the bad. And that'll be a very difficult choice when thinking about the beautiful. But I think the first good is a really obvious one. It's the sense of a whole career of a very, very prolific artist. And it was a real pleasure to see the twists and turns of Richter's evolution as an artist. He famously destroyed all his works before 1962, both works he produced back in East Germany, where he grew up, and some of the early works produced in the West as well. And so this show starts with painting number 1, a table, which you can see here, which is the official start of his output. And also, equally as famously, in 2017, Richter announced he'd finished painting. He completed his cycles of painting and his work. He's still drawing, and he's still drawing to this day as I speak. He's 93 years old. But so there's a full stop, and this show was able to show the richness, especially of the painting, because he is one of the greatest 20th and 21st century painters, in my opinion, both in terms of technical skill and creative ingenuity as well. I found the charge, especially of the first works, but this charge stayed throughout his output, particularly powerful. He would adopt very early on this photorealist style, but then he would draw the paintbrush across wet paint to kind of blur the precise realism of the work. And he said this was, and I'm just going to have to quote this a second, to express the fleetingness of our ability to perceive. Particularly like this work, Deer, by the way, which was based on a photograph that Richter had taken in East Germany and brought to the West. And so even though he destroyed all his work that was produced in East Germany that he brought with him, there is still that nice link. And it's not surprising that, as someone who was born in 1932 and grew up in the Third Reich, many seemingly innocent family photos are actually charged with double and sometimes triple meaning. Take this picture, for example, of a family at the seaside. The grinning man in the middle is, in fact, Richter's father-in-law, a doctor who enthusiastically took part in the Nazi program of forced sterilization of certain groups in society. Or take this one of Richter's aunt, cradling an infant Gerhard Richter. She died in the Nazi extermination program of psychiatric patients. This painting of a photo of Richter's uncle belies the fact that he died very early on in World War II. And perhaps for me, the most tragic of these family photos is the photo of his father. His father was a maths teacher who was forced to join the Nazis in order to keep his job, but was then banned from teaching in the East as a maths teacher after the Second World War because he'd been a member of the Nazi Party. He looks almost clown-like, doesn't he, here? And there's this idea, in a way, of a lack of leadership, a lack of a father figure, a lack of being able to trust those above you in all of these very early works. And I found this charge goes all the way through to this work, September, which was Richter's engagement with 9/11, the works of the Baader-Meinhof gang who committed suicide, and so many other massive events as well. The charge culminates in his much frustrated attempts to try and portray or recognize or paint the Holocaust, which he did finally in this work, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. Linked to these photorealist works, I love the fact there were so many iconic Richter works, like this one of his first wife coming down the stairs, or this one of a candle, which has obviously become a very, very well-known motif of Richter over the years. The sheer quality and range of the loans from all over the world, from Taiwan and the Yagio collection, from America, from all over Europe, it makes this show so powerful. And that links to the second thing I really enjoyed, and that was the chance to see full cycles of work. The Fondation Louis Vuitton, for example, has brought works together and to show them in public, sometimes for the first time in a long time. I loved Richter's response to the Titian Annunciation painting. He saw this in Venice, bought a postcard, and he wanted to paint a copy of it because he found it so beautiful, but he was constantly dissatisfied with the results. And so he produced this cycle where the painting is kind of almost deconstructed, torn apart, if you like, and becomes abstract art. This is his first cycle from 1973, and he saw the Titian painting at the 1972 Venice Biennale. And then there's the abstract Cage series in homage to John Cage. It's absolutely amazing to see these 5 works on the wall together in one gallery space. There's the works on the sort of side of the Baader-Meinhof gang, some of which I haven't shown you, some of which I have, which is really powerful when you see them in one room. And I did, really saw the Holocaust work in a new light. This mirror with these incredibly graphic pictures taken by Sonderkommando in Auschwitz, which I didn't show you explicitly, and then Richter's abstract response to these works in the 4 Birkenau paintings. He was an artist who often did work in cycles, and that's something I really enjoyed seeing as well. It was brilliant to see Richter riff off other artists and almost be in conversation with them, whether it's this toilet roll, which I'm pretty sure is linked to Andy Warhol's pop art pieces from the 1960s, or this work, which I'm sure is kind of rather cheekily satirizing Marcel Duchamp, or obviously the Titian work as well. That was really great to see. And overall, it was absolutely fascinating to see the development and the non-linear progression of Richter's work. Yes, there are moments when he breaks through to abstraction, but he keeps being pulled back to that incredibly technically demanding photorealist style, even towards the end of his paintings. And there is sort of, for me, 3 big, or maybe 4 big things which form his art. The photorealist works, sometimes blurred, sometimes not. The abstract works, also sometimes kind of blurred. And the works engaging with colour and colour scale. And then the works engaging with glass, which are more, he wouldn't call them sculptures, but they're more sculptural, more physical. So 3 of the 4 are painting works. And, it's fascinating to see that his medium, his preferred medium, even though he did use others, was oil. oil on a canvas, and that stayed constant throughout the career as well, despite some deviations away from that. And so you get to see that Richter wasn't an artist who went in a neat arc. He kind of zigzagged all over the place, returned back on himself. And you just get a sense of this on an epic scale through the sheer number of works in this exhibition. So I loved it. In terms of the bad, I mean, I'm going to put a couple of things out there really as questions more than criticisms. Can a show be too big? I was exhausted by the end of this one and had to sit down. You can sort of, because you enter the Fondation Louis Vuitton once, and then once you're in there, you can go to the very posh looking restaurant or the rather cheaper cafe in the basement where I went and had a baguette to rest. And you do need to do that. And probably I would say this has got to be your art show for the day. I wouldn't try and rush around it in a couple of hours because you'll end up just missing out and not appreciating it. But I'm not criticizing it for being too big. I absolutely loved it. I wanted to put it out there to you. And secondly, I'm going to put the question out there. Are his abstract works as great as the greatest American abstract painters, especially the abstract expressionists? I'm not I think they're all very good, and I think lots of them are great, but I'm not sure if they're consistently quite as good. He used a squeegee in works like this, which I haven't shown you in the show. I've sort of left it to now, a sort of thick squeegee, which you can see the marks being scraped across, and then he would take paint off and replace it. I think these are good, and I think some of the use of colour is outstanding. I loved, for example, the Cage series, as I've already said, but I'm not 100% sure if he quite, in the abstract form, matches those Americans. But let me know what you think in the comments about that. Some of the abstract works are amazing, and the photorealist works are outstanding. And indeed, I'm going to choose one of the abstract works as one of my two beautiful picks in a minute. The third thing, and I'm not going to be churlish, is there were some works I'd love to have seen missing. The sort of those great Alps works, or deconstructed Alps I'd love to have seen. But generally, I'm not going to be churlish about what wasn't there when so much was. So in terms of the beautiful, I have to consult my notes. The first work was this one, Vold 3. I really enjoyed this. I thought it's sort of abstract work held by the Fondation Louis Vuitton. I thought it was really strong. I absolutely loved the really precise photorealist beauty of this work, Betty. We painted Betty several times, as you've seen in this show, turning away, looking into this grey, showing Richter's absolute skill as an artist. He is, no doubt about it, one of the greatest post-war painters. He was incredibly technically skilled and so interested in pushing the boundaries and experimenting. So I love this show. I think I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I really enjoy it. I sadly won't be back because it's in Paris and I won't be able to afford to go there again. But if I could, goodness me, I would. For €16, I think that's a steal, actually. It's on until the 2nd of March. So I hope you enjoyed it. There's more vlogs every week, every weekend, hopefully for the next maybe 2 or 3 weekends from other shows I went to see in Paris as well. So do stay tuned for that, as well as more London vlogs coming on Mondays. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you haven't, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you. And merci again to the Fondation Louis Vuitton for putting on this show.